Hello to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. What I'd love to do today on this overcast Sydney winter's day is to go for a walk and talk and have a chat about a book. And the book that I've selected for this episode today is an interesting title. It's entitled The Librarian of Auschwitz, a book that was published on the 18th of September 2012 by an author who goes by the name of Antonio Iturbe. I've been a lifelong reader, but I've never risked anything for a book. I've never hidden under my clothes or memorised pages in case the physical copy was destroyed. I've certainly never faced death for the crime of owning 8 torn, battered volumes. Listening to Antonio Iturbe's telling of Dieter Kraus makes one look at our overflowing bookshelves a little differently. What we take for granted, this 14-year-old girl treasured as sacred enough to die for. Dieter became the secret librarian of Auschwitz, risking her life every day to hide books for the children in the family camp of Auschwitz. If the guards had found them, she would have been killed instantly, but she kept them away. Because she understood something the rest of us forget. Books aren't just entertainment. They're proof that human imagination can survive anything, and the Nazis knew it all so well. That's why owning them was punishable by death. So let's go through some of the key learnings from this book. It's a difficult topic, but there are some powerful lessons there for each and every one of us to contemplate. So there are moments that are going to change how we see reading. And the first message to come from this book is when we look at a time when books became contraband. The idea that owning a book could be punishable by death seems surreal until Iturbe explained the Nazi logic. Books give people hope, and hope makes people dangerous. The guards could control the bodies, but stories lived in minds where they couldn't be reached. Dieter understood that keeping those 8 books alive was an act of rebellion more powerful than any weapon of war. And it makes one realise that every time we read freely, we're exercising a freedom that others died to preserve. Another key message to come from this book is where we look when one's memory became a library. Some of the books in Ditter's library existed only in people's heads, and this becomes relevant because many cultures were able to pass on their cultures, their traditions, their heritage through oral language and oral traditions, so that the understanding is that it only appeared and was real in people's heads. And likewise in this book we talk about how memory became a library for the Jewish race at a time when they were in the concentration camps. Teachers and professors in the camp would recite entire novels from memory, becoming living libraries themselves. Children would gather around these human books, hungry, absolutely starving for stories that could transport them beyond the barbed wire. This image on its own is quite haunting. The idea that our minds could become sanctuaries, that memorization wasn't just an academic exercise but a survival skill, is really, really important and powerful. We move on to talk about the fact that a 14-year-old became the keeper of stories, just like Jim's 5 a.m. club is a repository of close to 2,500 videos, 2,500 stories. I start to get a feeling that these sorts of projects are very, very important, if not for the current generation, then definitely for the generations of the future. Maybe in 100 or 200 years from now, the videos that I am putting together on a daily basis may come to life and be more relevant then than what they are now. Ditter was just a child when she accepted the responsibility of protecting the camp's secret library. The weight of that decision, the daily terror of discovery, the careful choreography of hiding and sharing books, all carried by someone who should have been worried about homework, not by the threat of death. Her courage makes us ashamed of every time we've claimed to be too busy to read something meaningful. Another point to come from this book is when we look at how stories have also become medicine. Iturbe's shows how the books weren't just escape, they were treatment for despair. Parents would request specific stories for their children. Teachers would use books to create makeshift schools, and people would gather around readings like campfires in the darkness. The books became community. The books became hope and resistance, all at the same time. And it makes one think differently every book club, every shared reading experience, every story passed down through families. And the last key message to come from this author is where we look at and realise what we are actually really protecting. The most devastating realisation after reading this book is where we look at the fact that the Nazis weren't just trying to kill bodies, they were trying to murder culture, memory and imagination itself. Dieter's library was preserving more than books, it was preserving the human capacity to dream, to learn, to believe in something beyond one's immediate suffering. Every hidden page was a declaration that the mind could not in any way, shape or form be conquered, even when everything else was taken away. Iturbe didn't just tell Dieter's story, he reminded us why stories matter in the first place. In a world that often treats books as disposable entertainment, he shows us that literature is actually life itself, messy, essential and worth dying to protect. I'll never take my freedom to read for granted ever again, and maybe that's exactly what Dieter would have wanted. Take care everybody, wishing you all the best, and bye for now. This is Jim signing off from Jim's 5am Club.